Hello and welcome to The Point World Affairs. I'm your host, Daniel Chow. On our program, we delve a little deeper into some of the stories turning heads and making headlines around the world. To help dissect them into digestible bites, we're joined here in the studio by Dr. Kim Sang-woo, chairman of the East Asia Cultural Project. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Professor, so we begin our program by introducing some of the important news of the week by some words that's going to be begging for your attention. On the screen, we have a few keywords of the week. If you take a look at them, Dr. Kim, why don't you go ahead and pick our first word of the day?
Let me go with the word conflict.
Interesting choice.
Libya, which had been in turmoil due to the division of power since it toppled its dictatorship 8 years ago in the Arab Spring, is on the verge of another civil war. The Libyan National Army, an anti-government force that has dominated eastern Libya, has launched a massive military operation. The LNA does not recognize the government of national accord and has been vying for legitimacy. It declared an offensive to take control of Tripoli and launch airstrikes that closed the only functioning airport in Libya's capital in a matter of 2 days.
طرابلس ليست عاصمة للليبيين، الشرفاء الوطنيين. طرابلس عاصمة للإرهاب والإرهابيين. طرابلس عاصمة لشلة من المجرمين.
With the government also having launched a counterattack, clashes between the two sides are feared to be escalating into a civil war.
تعلن القوات المسلحة الليبية عن انطلاق عملية بركان الغضب وذلك لتطهير كافة المدن الليبية من المعتدين والخارجين عن الشرعية.
The G7 urged both the GNA and LNA to immediately stop all military actions, while the UN Security Council also appealed for easing tensions and halting military action. With fears of a full-scale civil war spreading in Libya, a major oil producer, Brent crude has surpassed $70 a barrel for the first time since November last year. Brent crude serves as a benchmark price for purchases of oil worldwide.
Well, Dr. Kim, is a rather tragic situation. I believe hopes were high after Gaddafi was ousted, and it's been 8 years of instability ever since, with a lot of conflicts and two differing leaders or governments that's trying to win the people over.
Well, it's a typical case of good intentions, bad results. It's not the only case. I mean, we see in Iraq the instability there. Libya is in a state of chaos, and unfortunately, deposing a dictator doesn't mean democracy comes naturally. The situation is bad for the people of Libya, and in a way, cynically speaking, some are saying that it doesn't matter which one takes power, but they want stability now. And in the case of North Korea and Kim Jong-un, this is an example that they do not want to follow, which makes the denuclearization issue that much more difficult.
When there's going to be external forces involved in transitions, they better be ready with a follow-up plan and measure.
Yes.
Right. Now, Professor, I'm going to choose the next word for us. Let's take a look at what we have for grabs up there. I will go with boycott.
Boycott. We're being negative here. Conflict, boycott.
Angry people rallied in downtown London. A luxury hotel there is facing an untimely boycott. This is due to the new law that took effect in Brunei. The law allows for those convicted of sodomy or adultery to be stoned to death. Controversy is mounting as it is known to be applied not only to locals but also to travelers.
We are here to stay, and they've got to recognize us as human beings like any other person, not to stone us to death.
Canada issued a travel warning to Brunei, while the UN issued a statement to immediately cease the enforcement of the Cruel Criminal Code. Famous celebrities like actor George Clooney and British pop star Elton John are also leading the Brunei boycott. In the face of such outcry, hotels owned by the Brunei royal family have blocked their social media accounts.
It is a shocking reality there in Brunei. Of course, the world has responded with boycotts of various services and goods that Brunei provides. apparently the crime they consider being gay as heavy as rape or robbery.
I think that's really barbaric in the sense that this is the 21st century. We're looking at sending people to Mars, and we're still here in the name of religion. We're crucifying in this barbaric manner people in this way is undoubtedly something that we should not accept and tolerate.
Brunei says they are sticking with this regardless of what the rest of the world says because they believe they are a sovereign, Islamic, and fully independent country, and they stick with the traditional ways.
I don't know whether this is traditional. You have to interpret it in a way that is befitting to the circumstances of present day.
All right, Professor, I'm going to let you choose our last word of the day.
Well, we've been very...
Let's hope it's not as depressing as the previous two.
We've been a bit negative, so let's go for something that sounds a little bit more positive. And I would like to go with generation.
The 5G era has arrived, allowing users to enjoy the internet that's 20 times faster. South Korea's 3 mobile carriers held their respective launch events for the world's first 5G service an hour earlier than the initial schedule, as U.S. telecom carrier Verizon launched the service a week earlier than planned. With that, South Korea became the first country to release 5G technology in the world. The 5G is deemed a key technology in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, as it can connect autonomous cars, hospitals, and apartments with a single network.
Proof of Korea maintaining its reputation as the most wired nation in the world, the most tech-savvy country in the world. But apparently it was a quiet race to the top to be the world's first. There were other parties involved.
Yes, so the American Verizon, yes, but first is not the best. I mean, okay, we set the so-called example, and maybe the standard as well. Now we have to show that we can also provide the best service, contents. Now, as you know, the 5G generation is revolutionary. If it comes to its full potential, it will mean that things will not be the same. And in that case, we wonder all the developments that will take place in technology, which is AI, autonomous cars and planes and robots and all this. What will that mean for the human race? We'll have less jobs. Our life expectancy is increased. We have a lot of time on our hand. And what will human beings be doing when all these other technology takes over and does the job that we used to do? That's something that mankind has seriously pondered upon. The technology itself is not perfect in the sense that, unlike the 4G, the distance that it covers is 300 meters in comparison to 4G, which is 10 kilometers. That means a lot of transmitters are necessary. And at the present moment, it doesn't do very well in bad weather. Rain, storm makes it difficult for the 5G equipments to work. So there is still a lot of technological areas that we need to address, and also to do that, there are a lot of competitors, China, US, and other European countries as well. So we really need to work on that as well.
No premature celebrations yet for
Not
Korea.
yet.
We're only at the infancy when it comes to 5G technology.
But we took that first step.
That's the important,
Yes.
important to have a head start.
Yes.
This week's main segment of The Point World Affairs is on the summit between Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump that happened on April 11th. The meeting lasted for about 2 hours, which included one-on-one talks between the two presidents at the White House, smaller meetings, and a luncheon that expanded into yet another negotiating opportunity. The summit drew global attention as it was the first meeting that was held since the Hanoi summit collapsed. President Trump has emphasized his good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and said that surprising changes are set to take place, but added that sanctions will remain in place for the time being.
We want sanctions to remain in place, and frankly, I had the option of significantly increasing them. I didn't want to do that because of my relationship with Kim Jong-un. I did not want to do that. I didn't think it was necessary. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, I held it back. But I think that sanctions are right now at a level that's a fair level, and I really believe something very significant is going to happen. We could always increase them, but I didn't want to do that.
The two presidents agreed on the goal of complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and how the path to peace will be achieved through a top-down process led by the leaders of the two Koreas and the United States.
우리 한국은 미국과 함께 북한의 완전한 비핵화의 최종적인 상태, 그 비핵화의 목표에 대해서 완벽하게 동일한 생각을 가지고 있고, 그 다음에 또 기실 틈 없는 그런 공조로 완전히 문제가 끝날 때까지 공조해 나갈 것이라는 것을 약속드리겠습니다.
Anticipation is rising as to whether this latest round of meeting between Seoul and Washington will invigorate stalled denuclearization talks.
Well, Dr. Kim, this is our main story of the week. No surprise there. It's another summit between Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump, this time over in Washington. Many people stayed up late to watch what unfolded. It lasted for about 2 hours. I think expectations were high that this could provide some type of momentum to turn things around after the fallout from the Hanoi summit. How would you evaluate this meeting overall?
I think it was a necessary process for President Moon in particular, and also for President Trump in general, because the alliance has to show that it is completely united in its stance towards denuclearization of North Korea. And in a way, we anticipated that the 2-hour meeting meant that they will not go into detail, and it would only be something that it will be a kind of a recognition or acknowledging what we already know. I think President Trump took two things from Hanoi. One was that Kim Jong-un was not ready to do a deal to have a complete denuclearization. It was an incomplete denuclearization, which Kim Jong-un wanted. The second was that the sanctions were working and had an effect on North Korean economy and North Korea. So after that, I think Trump feels that he is in a more comfortable position to take some time on how to go about with the next step.
A strong stabilizing factor, that is President Moon Jae-in over in Washington for the talks with President Donald Trump. And now it's time for us to connect to a local expert for more analysis. For that, we have David Maxwell, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, on the phone right now. Hello, good to have you with us.
Very nice to be here.
So how did the U.S. media and political circles assess President Moon's meeting with President Donald Trump?
Well, I think that we have not heard a joint statement from President Moon and President Trump. They spoke before the meeting, and so I think the media is still scratching their heads trying to figure out what happened. President Trump does not want to lift sanctions, and I think that's important. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that North Korea must comply with the sanctions. Sanctions are not a concession or a bargaining chip. And the UN Security Council, the South Korean government, the U.S. Congress have placed requirements on North Korea to comply with the sanctions. And so if you want to lift sanctions without North Korea complying, in essence, what you are saying is that you are allowing North Korea to keep their nuclear and missile program. You are allowing North Korea to continue to conduct illicit activities around the world. You're allowing North Korea to provide overseas slave labor around the world to gain hard currency for the regime. And you allow North Korea to conduct cyber activities around the world. And most importantly, you allow North Korea to continue to conduct human rights abuses against the Korean people living in the North. And so when people talk about lifting sanctions, they need to talk about North Korea complying with the sanctions. They have not complied with the sanctions, and they have made no significant moves towards denuclearization. So it is premature to talk about sanctions unless you support North Korea continuing its barbaric activities inside North Korea and remaining a threat to the peace, security, and stability of the Republic of Korea.
Well, thank you. That was David Maxwell from FDD in Washington. We appreciate his insights. Now, Professor, President Trump has made it clear that he will not be lifting sanctions on North Korea while still stressing good relations with leader Kim Jong-un. What do you make of this?
Well, I think what President Trump is saying is that the ball is in the North Korean court, and he's waiting for North Korea to come out and say that we will accept the complete denuclearization of North Korea. And the way that he is going to go about it is through President Moon. So President Moon, after his return to Korea, he will start to communicate with North Korea and to see whether North Korea is ready to comply. I'm sure that although the position of U.S. is that there will be no sanction lifting unless North Korea complies to complete denuclearization, I think there is some leeway in terms of how to go about that. And I think President Moon is trying to work that out, which can be acceptable to North Korea. This is a very difficult and complex way of going about this, because North Korea, after showing its hand and expressing that sanctions are actually having its toll on North Korea, it's now taken the step of saying that self-reliance, independent economic development on their part. So they're going to take the long stance of really enduring and standing independently and waiting it out kind of strategy. So in the beginning, North Korea may not comply to South Korea's approach. But in order for something to happen, for U.S. and North Korea also to make acceptable, the agreement must be that there is a comprehensive package where North Korea denuclearizes, but in steps. And in each step, there has to be some kind of reciprocal measure by the U.S. This is something that North Korea may accept.
Right. It seems like after this sit-down between Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump, South Korea's role has been significantly elevated to a new level in terms of playing the mediator role or ensuring that the peace process moves forward smoothly.
I don't know whether it's the position of South Korea has been elevated. I think the position of South Korea has now more responsibility.
More responsibilities.
Because it has to come back to the U.S. with something that the U.S. can accept. And to persuade North Korea is not an easy feat.
Right. President Donald Trump was made it clear that he would like to learn whatever South Korea finds out from their meeting with their North Korean counterparts.
So again, as I said, it's really up to North Korea whether or not they are ready to accept the complete denuclearization of North Korea. That has to be the end game, but it will be reached in stages. So if North Korea is ready to accept that, and the end game is complete denuclearization, then there will be some room for negotiation and some kind of future talks. If not, then it's going to be a long process and a long wait.
As the common stabilizing force between the two sides, has South Korea done enough? If not, what more can we do from here on?
Well, there's so much we can do because we have a counterpart. We have North Korea, we have the U.S. How, in order for them to find something that they can accept is a very difficult and very complex detail that South Korea must develop. And it's always the case. You cannot satisfy everyone.
Right. It's important for South Korea to know where to shine the light on to help these two meet halfway again. Well, it's time for the last segment of our program, a quick trip around the globe for the snippets that grabbed attention in various corners of our world. First, we take you to Austria.
Have you ever imagined flying over a jam-packed road in the rush hour? That imagination is coming to life in Vienna, Austria, as a flying taxi was tested for the first time. The air taxi, which is called EHang 216, is pilotless and fly on drone propellers. One weighs 340 kilograms and can fly for 30 minutes at a maximum speed of 150 kilometers per hour.
You read your name, you read your destination, you confirm, and you shut the door, and the vehicle will bring you to your destination. Free of stress, you can read, you can whatever you want to do.
The Austrian government says it plans to support air taxis by overhauling regulations, while car-sharing company Uber also plans to launch a flying taxi service in 2023.
Next, we head to Hungary.
People clad in 19th century attire ride horses, shoot guns, and fight swords. This was a scene in Hungary just a few days ago. It's actually an event in memory of the Hungarian Revolution of April 1849, in which the people fought the Habsburg monarchy to gain independence from the Austrian Empire. Soldiers that have been protecting Hungary for generations, we applaud your bravery.
Next up is Russia.
This is a so-called whale prison located in tiny enclosures on Russia's Pacific coast. So far, 98 whales are entrapped. While there were 102 until last year, 4 died due to poor conditions. Last October, a company was indicted on charges of fishing violations and animal abuse, but the whale prison is still in operation. The whales are allegedly sold to marine parks in China illegally. In the face of mounting international criticism, Russian authorities say they will release the whales in stages. We hope these whales can be free to swim in the wide ocean as soon as possible.
Let's head over to Japan now.
Being over 6 feet tall, an athlete with an unrelenting stamina appeared on the court. Give it a basketball and it hardly ever misses a three-pointer. The robot called Q3 calculates the location and distance of the goalpost, then controls the motor at its arms and knees to throw the ball at precisely the correct angle and force. Toyota Motor says it hopes to be able to build a genius basketball robot that can run, dribble, and jump in 20 years.
Our last stop is the Philippines.
As many as 757 tarantulas arrived in the Philippines, packed in cookie boxes. A Filipino man was caught at a mail exchange center near Manila's International Airport. He was trying to bring in hundreds of live tarantulas in wrap boxes from Poland. Tarantulas are a popular species among spider lovers. For that reason, it can be sold at high prices in the black market.
They're all tarantula. 757, tapos yung market value niya, umaabot siya sa 300 to 350,000.
In the Philippines, the trade, collection, and possession of spiders is prohibited without permission.
Looking at the air taxi, interestingly, it's in Austria, but apparently the machine is mostly made in China. It's called the Yihang is the company.
Well, I would want one of those, definitely.
It's unmanned, it seats 2 passengers, and they're going to produce about 300 next year. There are many other companies looking to take a bite out of that pie as well.
Well, when you look at the traffic jam we have in Seoul or in Korea, I mean, it could be a necessary thing. I'm sure that the business will be prospering in those countries with traffic jams.
Right, ride services are also looking to take a part of that action as well. It's going to be, maybe we'll see a different kind of jam, not traffic on the ground, but up in the air.
Possibly.
Possibly. Yes. Another story that's not exactly an uplifting one, but we need to talk about this issue. Whales, belugas, and orcas, they're highly sociable mammals. They live, hunt, and migrate together, and it's going to be a very deeply traumatic experience for them to be separated from the pod and captivity. Apparently, their lifespan can be reduced up to 10 times.
Yeah, it's another typical case of human cruelty, greed, and insensitivity. I mean, so many species are being extinct already and has been extinct. I think there should be stronger measures to prevent these kinds of things to happen. Already, as the result of the scientists say that many of them are suffering from long exposures to extreme cold, and their health is deteriorated very rapidly.
Efforts are ongoing to try and rescue them, but looks like these efforts need to be stepped up and be provided greater support, because lobbying efforts by companies are growing as well.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Kim, it's been fun and very delightful to have you here with us. We hope to see more of you on Arirang TV. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your insights.
It was a pleasure for me to be here today.
Likewise, it was an honor for us as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that's all we could pack into today's installment of Point World Affairs. Do tune in again next week for more. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye for now.